was getting that set up for you. I made a mistake with the lighting. Like I was like, how do I make it so that the ocean shows and I'm darker? And I couldn't remember how to do it. I was like, oh my God, how do I do this? And so, well, let me just turn this a little bit. I think I need to turn. Maybe I'll do it this way. Hold on. I think I can do it. Maybe I need to move. I need to move this way. That's what I need. Okay, there we go. I need to move. Okay. Sorry, still trying to figure this out a little bit. I also think that my camera is upside down, so I flipped it backwards. So I don't actually, I'm not actually in the position that I think I'm in. So that's super weird. Okay. Let me check with Christy to make sure that I'm, well, first let me make sure that you can hear me. Okay, good. You can hear me. Fabulous. You can hear me. That's a good thing. Next thing, let me just make sure Christy is sending out the text so that I don't do it. Because where is she? Okay, you sending it out? Because remember last time I sent it out and she sent it out and she's like, you gotta stop doing that. I'm like, oh my God, I totally do. So hi, hello, LaFern. Oh, good, that looks great too. I wanted to see how the chat stuff looked. Oh, okay. Whew. What's great is that my head is like right over the ring light, so you can't really see it. Rock on. Oof. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about your to-do list. What I'm finding, by the way, the reason why this is also chaotic is because I'm not a fan of the studio that we have set up here. It's like a dungeon, and I was like, after the first couple of, because I've done several streams in there, but it's like, I've got this. Why do I sit in the dungeon and then I come out of the dungeon and I feel so dark and dank, and I feel like I've just come out of a basement, and it's like, and then I walk out of the room like this totally dark, and I walk out into like this sunniness, and and I'm like, oh my God, I forget we live here and it's so beautiful and the sun is shining, and I'm like, why am I sitting here in a dungeon? And so I told Alex, I said, originally we were going to use the guest room as a studio. That's not really working for me. I was like, I feel like we need something else. So we're workshopping other ideas, alternative solutions to how we might be able to have me be able to do my work. I got myself a standing desk, like a small podium standing desk that will fit in the closet back here. So I'm thinking I might set it up so that I do my streams in here, sit down there, just get it set up, and then shut the door, and then I put it back into the closet when it's done. So that's sort of my plan for it, but we're still workshopping it. This is just one of those things where, for all of you who I know, I'm not alone. Lots of us are trying to figure out, how do I sit? Where do I do my backdrop? How should it look? What about the lighting? And we're worried about it being not right. I just want to make sure that it's fine. It doesn't matter if it's not right. In the end, all it matters is that you do something, right? You do something. I don't even know what the guest room would end up being, because it's dark. There's nothing there. So we're probably just gonna, what I'll do probably is set up the foam boards in a corner so that I have a space that I can do recording that I may need to. Where's my Kleenex? And then, oh, there it is. And then probably just turn it into just a proper guest room and maybe use it more for storage. Take the storage out of here, and because we won't now, if we're going to be using that room for storage, that gives us this closet then to put the desk in. So I'm hoping that will help a little bit. Exactly. You got to make the house work for you. Christy, you got it? I'm just making sure I didn't see your chat. So I just want to, did you send out? I assume you did. Always. Got it. Always. Thank you. You're the best. My hero. So, it's interesting. The last couple of Stop Shitting All Over Yourselves, I've had my idea of what I'm going to do the podcast on, and then the night before, I'll have some sort of spiritual visitation where I'm like, no, I can't talk about this. I have to talk about this. And then I just redo everything. And I woke up this morning and I'm furiously writing because, I pulled my card this morning and the card was the wolf. Actually, my card this morning was the wolf, which I thought was super interesting. And the wolf was about, and it was so interesting considering what I was going to be talking about today. So what I'm talking about today is to-do lists, right? I'm going to approach to-do lists from a completely different perspective. For those of you who have been following me for a long time, you've heard this perspective before. But if you have not listened to me talk about action items and to-do lists, this is going to be a very different way of approaching action items and to-do lists, but we're going to break it down a little bit. But it is so different from what you would ordinarily expect that there's going to be resistance from you in general. If you're not familiar with it, if this is the first time you're hearing these ideas, you're going to feel resistance, and that's totally normal. I myself felt resistance towards the idea when I started to like have sneaking suspicions that I don't think this is what I thought it was. And I resisted it for a really long time. And the problem, of course, when you're figuring these things out and don't actually have a coach to help you or don't have somebody guiding you and you're really figuring it out on your own, is that it's really painful. It takes longer than it should. You doubt a lot. It's hard to figure out the language. Like it's a difficult process because you're literally figuring it out. Once you've figured it out and now you're like, okay, guys, this is what I figured out. Let's see if it helps you, right? At that point, anyone else who does it after that can come to you for help, which is fabulous, right? So what I want you to know is that you have me as a resource, and you have Christy as a resource, and if you're a member of the squad, you have the squad as a resource to help you navigate these ideas, because the reason why I do all of these things that I do is because for the longest time, I subscribe to that philosophy that we should be doing things the way that it's been laid out forever, because that's how everybody's done it forever, and obviously they know what they're doing, and they're saying do it that way, and it'll work. And the more I tried to do that, the more I realized that, like, dude, I get that it's working for you, and I get that it may have worked for years, but I'm just telling you right now, it's not working for me, and it's not working for thousands of other people. So there's something off here. Now, for many people, when they find that what works for them doesn't work for other people, they immediately internalize it and think to themselves, oh my God, then what I'm doing must be wrong, even if it's working for them. Or you must be wrong. There's something wrong with you. Or people don't like to be wrong. They don't like to be challenged. And so immediately it's going to make them uncomfortable, and they're going to deflect it back onto you. So a lot of times the feelings that we get when we're looking for help and we're doing things that other people are already doing and they tell us, well, it's working for me, is we get the deflection from them of like, it's them being like, well, it's not me, right? It's not me, so it must be you, right? Because they don't want it to be them, because they've got all this stuff figured out. They're dealing with this. They don't want to deal with it being them. And they're right. It doesn't have anything to do with them. It is not them, but it's also not you. It's just that you may not be a good fit, in terms of action, activity, and you as a person, right? It's just like a relationship. You're not going to marry every guy you date. You're not going to sleep with every woman you meet. You're going to decide based off of your interests, your likes, your dislikes, and the more that you know about yourself and the more that you know about how you like to engage with things, the better likelihood you're going to have of finding the mate or the partner that works for you. And the same thing is true for the things that you do in your day-to-day life for your business. You are a person with your own ideas, perceptions, feelings, experiences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the ultimately what ends up happening is that we just follow blindly what other people tell us to do, or what we have done for years anyway. So we're following ourselves blindly. And we just keep doing it. And sometimes what I found is somebody will say, how are things going? And I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's going great. And once I realized that I was saying it's going great, but then when I sat down at my computer, it wasn't going great, I realized that I was lying. And that made me really start to think about how I answer those questions. So when somebody said, how are you doing? Or how's business going? I started to be really honest. I'm like, well, let me answer you honestly. And I really started to break it down. And like, I don't think they really wanted that answer, but it helped me a lot to figure out where some of these issues rise. And a lot of times when you find in your business that it's not doing what you want it to do, you'll go to some very specific places to fix it. And often those are not the places you need to be going. In fact, this is where you need to start almost always. So what we're going to be talking about today is how you can approach your to-do list in a way that's going to actually create progress and money. Money and progress. That's the key. This podcast is recorded live. I don't know how well the audio is going to... Oh, let me hit the record button. I remembered. I don't know how great the quality on this is going to be because I'm not using my microphone. I'm using my camera as we figure these things out. So we're just going to have to go with whatever audio quality there is. And the way that this works is I'm basically going to talk for 15, 20 minutes about the idea, process, whatever, and then we'll come back and talk about your questions. And you can ask your questions the whole way through. I want to hear them. I want to come back. I want to answer them. However you have it, all right? So in the meantime, I want to know from you, how do you feel about your to-do list, right? How do you feel about your to-do list? Do you feel like you do enough? How do you feel about what you get done at night? Like before you go to bed at night, how do you feel? Do you feel good? Do you feel accomplished? Do you feel tired? How do you feel? So answer those questions while we sort of get going on this, and then I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, alrighty. Okay. Here we go. Ready? Okay. And action. Okay. Hello, and welcome to the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast, the place where you come to cross things to... Nope, that sucks. Let's start again. Okay. Starting again. Okay. Hello, and welcome to the Stop Shitting All Over Yourself podcast. This is my take 2 of the intro because the first one I didn't even know what I was going to say. This is the podcast that you come to eliminate things from your day-to-day to-do list. Many of us are doing a lot more things in our business than we actually need to be doing, and because we've collected activities over the years. And so when you listen to this podcast, you'll learn something new each time about an aspect of business and how to approach it in a way that maybe you hadn't thought of before to help you decide what things you can get rid of, what things you might want to double down on, and give you some tips for better ways to approach your business so that you can enjoy the process of being a business owner more and feel less hassle about your business and less overwhelmed. So today we're going to be talking about to-do lists because essentially this entire podcast is about doing less things, right? And knowing the things that you don't really need to be doing. But it occurred to me that we also want to be talking about how you approach that to-do list in the first place. Like, so if you've got all the things that you need to do, right, what each of those items can be a should or shouldn't item in there, right? But essentially you still have a list that you need to approach. You need to cross things out. You need to do things on them. You need to manage that list to get things done and go through your business. And I wanted to talk about that specifically because ultimately it doesn't matter how many things you get rid of. Like, you can eliminate half of what you're doing in a day. If you don't change how you're actually approaching your to-do list in your business, you will find that work that you removed was just replaced with something else that's now more work, and you're still as irritated and you're still as overwhelmed and there's still that many things to do. So the approach, figuring out how you're going to approach it is actually critically important, because that makes a really big difference in terms of how much you actually get done and how much progress you actually make. Now, when you make a to-do list, it makes you feel like you're keeping track of things, right? Like you know what you need to get done, right? Because for the most part, when we make lists because we don't want to forget anything. We have a lot of things we need to do. We don't want to forget anything, and we want to feel secure in the knowledge that everything we need to do is written down somewhere so that we can have a sense of calm, a sense of order, and a sense of control over our environment. We're trying to create a sense of control over something that feels out of control, like all the many things that we need to do in our business and in our day-to-day lives, right? Let's not forget that our business is part of our day-to-day lives. But it doesn't really take long before that calm, order, and control, like as you're adding things to your list, it doesn't take long for that calm order to start to feel more overwhelming, because now you're starting to add more things to your to-do list. So now it's getting longer and longer and longer, right? And as you're looking at your list, you find your subconscious and in some part of your body, you know that you're not going to be able to get through all these things today, right? You're making a list and you're like, some of these things are so big, I'm not going to be able to get through these things today, right? And the list is getting longer. Some things you're looking, oh my God, how am I going to get through this list? So over time, you're feeling over time, and by time I mean in the time that it takes you to create this list. So over the time that it takes you to create this list, you go from feeling confident and like calm and in control to feeling very differently. The first, you start to feel a little bit overwhelmed because you're getting ahead of yourself. You start to think about each activity that you need to do. So like if you put down, write a post on social media, your brain goes to the things that you need to do to write a post on social media, and you know that you don't like to write posts on social media, so you start to feel anxious and a little bit overwhelmed by that. Then you send out emails. Okay, now you're like, oh my God, I have to write social media posts and send out emails. Those are two very, very big things to do in a day. Then you have to get the vet appointment scheduled for the dogs. Then you have to take your kid to get the soccer shoes, right? And now you're starting to add things to the list, and each one you're like, okay, if I got to take the kid to the soccer shoes, that means that I have to drive, get there. That's going to take like 2 hours. Okay, is there anything else that I need to do with that? Meanwhile, your mind is trying to be in the present writing the list. Your other part of your mind has already gone forward into tomorrow and trying to sort out all the things that you're going to do tomorrow. So now you are in 2 separate time periods at the exact same time, and that will create an extreme amount of chaos and tension and anxiety in your body, because now it feels out of control because you're literally trying to occupy 2 time periods at the same time, the future and the present, right? So so that's the first thing that happens. You start to feel overwhelmed and like all these things that you need to do. The next thing that happens is that even though on some level you know that you're not going to be able to get through all these things at once, a tension begins to form between your brain and your body, because you know on a visceral level you can't get through it all right now, but your intellectual mind says, I have to get these things done if I'm going to be successful, if I'm going to make money, if I'm going to grow, I have to get these things done. So you try to push yourself a little bit and you try to squeeze things into a day and force things to go into places that maybe it may not naturally fit. So you start to overload your day, okay? Your brain, what it does when it starts to be like, oh man, I have to do this in order for me to make money, is what it starts to do is it puts an invisible now at the end of every item on your list, right? So now it's get the shoes for the kid now, or ASAP, or right away, or urgent and critical, right? Write social media posts, urgent and critical right now. Do the email, urgent and critical right now. So everything gets like I need to do this ASAP because I need to get this done so that I can make time to do the other things that I need to get done. So now you believe that you need to get everything done now. So you add a sense of urgency. So whereas before it was just a list of things, now it's a list of things that's keeping you not only in the past, but also not only in the present, but also in the future. And it all needs to get done right this instant. So I'm feeling anxious. I don't know about you. I'm feeling anxious just thinking about a list like this. And I have only put 4 things on that list so far, right? Only 4 things on that list. And then lastly, and this is a big one, and I want you to really sit with this one. Your self-worth becomes determined by how many things you can cross off a list in a day. So now, when you look at this list, right, you have so many things to do, you have so many important things to do, you have little things to do, you have big things to do, the whole 9, right? And because you have to get through so many things, instead of picking the items that are based off of what truly is a priority for your business, what is the thing that your business needs right at this minute, you pick based off of how you feel, right? You check things off to basically eliminate as many things as possible from your to-do list because you're trying to make it smaller, right? Because now you got a very big to-do list, you're looking at it, you want to get it shorter, you're like, if I'm going to be able to get to these priority things, I'm going to need to get rid of as many little things as I can so that I just feel like the list is a little bit more manageable and under control. So I'm going to cross off these things just to get them done. Often those little things are not things that are going to help you grow. They're not things that are going to help you build your business. They're just things that you want to do because they're quick, easy things that you can cross off a list, get yourself that dopamine hit, and feel good about yourself, okay? So now your list is no longer about creating momentum in your business. It's not about creating progress in your business. It's not about creating money. All your to-do list exists for now is to give you that next hit of dopamine. Whatever you can do to get that next hit of dopamine. And that happens very, very often, more often than you would think, right? Because now we make our decisions based off of issues we have with self-esteem and self-worth and value. And we just bring a lot of baggage into it, right? So you're looking at the list now that was meant to make you feel under control, but now is just a long list of overwhelming things that you need to get done right now, okay? So like, the step that we often take, like I said earlier, is to cross off as many things as we can to make the list smaller rather than to make progress in your business. And then prioritization is done based off of how you feel, not what's actually important. I just read Will Smith's book. It's his biography. And he talks about the first time in his movie star and rapping career, right? He's, one of the biggest stars in the world. He talks about the first time in his movie star career where he picked a job based off of how he felt and what he thought emotionally he should do, rather than what he already knew was important, because he'd already made the list of things that were important. He knew the things that were important when it came to picking movies. He'd made that list, and every movie so far, historically in his business, he had selected based off of the criteria that was important. Except this movie, he did not do that. He did it because it was something he felt he should do. And it was After Earth with his son Jaden. And that was an awful movie. It bombed at the box office. It did a really, really bad job. It was not a big grossing movie for him. It destroyed his relationship with his son. It caused an enormous amount of problems in his relationships with other people. His personal, interpersonal relationships were problematic. His self-esteem took a huge hit. This one movie was a turning point for him emotionally in terms of how you don't do things, okay? You don't do things that way. Even the biggest movie star in the world is subject to this. That's how important this is that this is not something that I came up with that I'm like, oh yeah, this is a fun idea, let's try it. This way of approaching work and business and your to-do list, this is agnostic of how much money you make. It's agnostic of how successful you are. It is really about ensuring that it is basically a system. It's a system that if you follow it, you will find success, but you have to figure out how to make that system work for you, right? So many of us, there's a couple of issues that exist with that. The first is that one, we don't think it'll apply to us, which I basically just said, look, it's going to apply to you, flat out. It applies to Will Smith. It applies to me. It's applied to people who are making $500 a month. I can tell you, I've not seen somebody for whom this doesn't apply. So this kind of applies to everybody. It's one of those things where we're just going to accept it and move on, okay? The other issue that we run into is that many of us like to go with the flow. I have ADHD, you might have ADHD, or maybe you just have trouble concentrating, but for a lot of us, we like to feel the freedom and the flow, and we don't want things controlling us. And there's a very, I'm an empath too, so I really like that fluidity. I want to be laying on the ocean and let the ocean take me where I go, blah, blah, that kind of thing, right? And that's great. But the problem with that is this. If you just put yourself out onto an ocean and say, I'm just going to go with the flow, you could end up in shark-infested waters, piranha-infested waters. You could end up 500 miles from shore on your little floaty. You could end up dead 500 miles from shore on your little floaty. You could end up eaten. God knows where you could end up because there's nothing to keep you in place. So if I'm an Anna Maria laying on the ocean in one of those flotation devices, I want one of those anchors, you know, that goes on the bottom, that'll hold me in place. It'll keep me in the spaces that I want to be in, right? I generally want to be near close to the shore. And now I can completely relax because I know that I'm safe. I've got my safety nets there. I'm not going anywhere I don't need to go, which means that whatever I do, I can just chill. You want to set that up for your business to where your business has its anchor, its framework, its line, and then you just lay back and do the things that you want to do, and you have the freedom within the rails that you've set down. No one else set these rails down. You get to set whatever your boundaries are. My sister is the queen. When we first started this conversation, my sister and I, probably 3 or 4 years ago, oh my God, I had to fight her tooth and nail. She was so against this idea of creating structure in her life. She was like, I'm a free spirit. I just can't, Vanessa. I just can't, right? We're sisters. That's how we talk to each other. It's fine. Right? I'm like, Sarah, do it. No. Like, that's the kind of argument we had, right? In the end, she didn't listen. Right? But then, one day, she came to me and she said, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, oh, what? And this is horrible for all sisters. You know this, right? When your sister comes to you and your sister comes to you and has to say she's sorry because you were right. That's the best feeling ever. Not for the person who's saying that, but it's great for the person who gets it, right? So she's like, I did it and you're so right. You're so right. Having the structure has given me more freedom in my life than I could ever have imagined. And I'm like, yep, that's what I told you. That's what I told you. So, just give it a try. Just give it a try if you're somebody who likes to go with the flow, because even if you like to go with the flow, your need to be on the flow is probably one of the things that's causing the problems because you're too flowy. You've got too much flowy, okay? So let's talk about your solutions then. All right, what solutions do we have available if we're in this position? Because where we're at now is that what I basically said is you have a to-do list option that you've been using to track all the things that you do for however many years since you were a child, and don't do that because that's bad for you. And you're like, okay, well, that's fabulous. What am I supposed to do instead? Okay, so like, that's great. Let's say you totally agree with me. What do I do instead? The good news is that you're not eliminating to-do lists. To-do lists are actually very, very powerful tools. What we're going to do instead is change the way you approach your activities on a day-to-day basis and change the way you think about each thing that you do each day and how you keep track of it. That's it. It's the approach that we're changing. You're still going to use a to-do list. You're not going to write it on backs of envelopes and receipts anymore, but you're still going to use a to-do list same way as you always did, but your approach is going to be a little bit different, okay? So first things first, I just want to lay it out here. To deal with the baggage and the self-esteem part, like that, the like self-worth and those kinds of things, you're going to need a therapist. That's something I recommend to all business owners. I have a therapist. I love my therapist. I had a period this year where I didn't have a therapist when she was out on maternity leave. It was really, really hard for me. I have a new one now because she stopped seeing patients. But all business owners would benefit from a therapist. It is a critical business tool like none I have ever seen before. So I recommend it. Psychology Today if you are looking for a therapist. But I'm not going to basically be like, here, go off, find a therapist. That's just one aspect of it, and that's dealing with the internal stuff. But even if you're seeing a therapist now, or you're going to see a therapist, there's a secondary space, which is the actual practical day-to-day stuff, because a therapist will help you work through the issues that you have inside, but they're not going to be able to give you advice and tell you, here, these are the things that you need to do to kind of make the change in your day-to-day so that your practices reinforce what you're learning in therapy. That's where I come in. Okay, so to fix the to-do list part, it's really more about working on the process and perspective, okay? So the first thing is I want to give you a mantra. It's in the show notes and it's also in the description. And this is a mantra that I use very, very often for myself as I was trying to break myself of this habit. And it is, whatever I'm doing is enough. Whatever I'm doing right now is enough. In this moment, I only need to be here, okay? My value is not determined by how many things I cross off a list. And I say that to myself every time I go back to my to-do list when I find myself getting caught up, because even if you learn this and apply it, the pendulum still swings, you'll still drift, and it's important to just know that you have the tools. So right now I'm coming out of a space where I felt that way. Like I fell back into the feeling of, oh my God, I got to cross off all the things, right? I was talking to my husband about that the other day. And I said, I feel like you need to cross off all the things. And he said, well, that's not your brand. I was like, that's not even me. And I was like, I need to work on this, right? So we've been working on that. Every time I go back to my to-do list, I just go back to my mantra. What I am doing is enough. What I'm doing is enough. And my value, your value, is not determined by how many things you can cross off a list. The amount of money that you make is not determined by how many things you cross off a list. If it was, then you would be a millionaire by now because you've crossed a lot of things off your list. So at this point, you've got to ask yourself, is that really how I make money? Right? Is that really how I do it? So say that to yourself whenever you look at your list. Just what I'm doing is enough. My value is not determined by how many things I cross off a list. And you can use your own version of it, but just basically that's the key message, right? Now, the next thing that we're going to do is reframe your approach to your to-do list, okay? The first is you don't want to make a new to-do list for yourself every day, and you don't want to put it on receipts or notes. So what you really want to do is have some sort of electronic system that you use for your to-do list. So it can be a Google Doc, just a Google Doc with Google Doc with the list. It can be, I use something called Notion. You might use a Trello list. You might have a task list, use your Keep or task list on Google. Whatever your you don't have to use a new time management system for this. We just need a space that you can collect all the things that you need to do in one place that is electronic, so you don't have to do it again. And so that you can keep adding to it, move it around, rearrange it, that kind of thing. Excuse me, I got a cough. Allergies. Okay. All right. So the reason why we need to-do lists, and I want to talk about that first because that's the most important thing. The reason why we do to-do lists, right, is so that we don't forget anything. That's the key. But I want to explain a little bit more about how to-do lists work and how we intuitively do something that is incredibly powerful, which is that whenever you think about something that you need to do. So if I say the exterminator's coming today, I need to remember to talk to him about the mice in the basement. If I don't write this down somewhere, my brain believes that it has to keep that in its active memory banks because I've said I need to remember it. So it's going to hold on to it so that I don't forget it, so that I have it when I need it. Holding on to that piece of information costs calories and energy, okay? So if 5 minutes later, Alex is like, don't forget to add apple juice to the Instacart order, and I say, okay, I won't, it adds another thing that it needs to remember. And that takes up emotional and physical and mental energy and takes calories. And every time something like that happens during the day, which happens many, many times during the day, it's often not said in the, oh, I have to remember to do this. You'll see something and be like, oh, got to message Syra. I'll do that later. I'll do that later. Message Syra. That becomes something in your brain that now takes calories, time, energy, and effort. Now, what happens after you do enough of these, well, it actually happens immediately, is that each one of these things drains your emotional battery, it drains your physical battery, it drains your energy. And so the more of these things that you're holding on to each day, the more tired you're going to get by the end of the day. So you might find yourself hitting the wall at like 2 or 1. Now, if you're somebody who has a chronic illness, you can't afford to have your energy being drained by something that isn't your illness, because your illness is already draining as much. It's just leaking out, right? So you don't want to have these extra things leaking out for you. So basically, before you even begin your day, your brain is doing so much work. It's taking up a lot of your energy, and it's kind of just floating out there, holding on to all this information because it's trying to help you. Now, if you take that information and you just write it down. So for me, I have one Notion sheet called my triage list that basically anytime I think of anything that I need to do at all, it goes on that list immediately. Right on the list, right on the list, right on the list. And if it's something that I need to do today, like Alex is like, don't forget to put pineapple on the grocery list, I'll put it on my today list. Don't forget to put pineapple on the grocery list, right? Now that it's written down, my brain considers that a closed case, okay? So I call those things that you have out there, like the ones that you haven't written down, I call them hornets, okay? Because they're like buzzing in your ear and like you're trying to sleep at night and it's a really annoying sound, right? It's yeah, no fun. So we're eliminating all the hornets that we can so that your brain now gets energy back, okay? So now when you wake up in the morning, it knows everything I need to do is already written on that piece of paper. I don't need to worry. So it's not immediately tapping out your calories like first thing in the morning, okay? So that's very, very powerful. So knowing that to-do lists do that, we don't want to get rid of the to-do list because then we would be losing a very, very powerful tool to make sure that we have our stuff organized, that things are in control, and that we're not leaking out energy. Okay. So the goal is to first make sure that you have a place to put them. Then what you actually want is 3 lists, okay? Your first list, you're gonna look at that very long list that you put together, and on that first list, it's your dream your business to life list. And that's gonna be your list of things that like you're not gonna get to today, you're not gonna get to tomorrow, you're not gonna get to next week. You need to get to them, they're really important, but it just isn't happening immediately. Just put all of those things on your dream list. Those are not things that need to be on your active to-do list because every time you see them, it's gonna generate a hornet in your brain that you're like, oh, I need to go do that. It's gonna make you feel guilty that you haven't done it yet. The situation is what the situation is. So if you haven't done your email yet, then you haven't done your email yet. And you feeling bad about it is only going to release cortisol in your system, which will block your access to your memories. It will make it harder for you to form new memories. It'll make it harder for you to learn. It'll make it harder for you to perform, which means anything that you do now is going to be subpar. So when we use our regular to-do list where we keep all of our dream stuff and visionary stuff in combination with the stuff that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, we're basically yo-yoing our brain between feeling like a loser and feeling like we've done stuff. There's no reason you need to feel like a loser. Like, honestly, the fact that you haven't done these things is fine. You'll get to them now that you're approaching things differently. And you need to have faith in yourself that I will get to them. And there's a pace. And I will have progress the whole way through because simply changing the way I approach my business is going to, and my to-do list, is going to create more income for me. It's going to create more momentum. It's going to create more interest. And just doing that is going to put me in a position where now I have time to do this email. But you're not going to be able to do it all now, whether you want to or not. And it doesn't matter how you feel about it. I don't care how bad you feel about it. And I'm not saying that to be a jerk. It just doesn't matter. It's not going to get done just because you feel bad about it. So feeling bad is simply something you're doing because you've decided that that's the price that you're going to pay for not doing it now. So you're like, okay, well, if I'm not going to do it now, then as long as I feel guilty about it, it's okay. It's actually better for you to not feel guilty about it because otherwise you're messing up all the things that you're doing now. You've got to be present in what you're doing now. So all the big stuff that you're not going to get to in the next couple of weeks goes on your dream list. Okay, so all blah, blah, everything goes on your dream list. So now you've eliminated a lot of your to-do list, okay? The second list is your triage list. And this is basically the list of all the things, everything that you list, right? And then your third list becomes your active to-do list. And this is where the other way of approaching it comes in, which is that this is the last thing, is that you need to determine your action items for each week on one day of the week. So you pick a day of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it doesn't matter what day it is, you just pick a day. Sit down, go through your triage list, go through your emails, go through everything that you need to go through and figure out what am I going to work on this week? Be thoughtful about it, be methodical and stay present in the moment. Don't tempt yourself to put as many things as you can on a day because you putting those things on a day doesn't mean they're going to get done. It just means that you're going to look at them, say it needs to get done, and if it doesn't get done, you're going to feel bad and move it on, right? Why do that to yourself? Give yourself a realistic understanding of what you can do in a day and what you can accomplish. And then as you accomplish those things, you will only feel good about what you've accomplished. You will not feel bad that you didn't do that other thing. You'll just feel good about these things that you did. And what's wonderful about that is that that success gives you dopamine, it gives you serotonin, it gives you so many feel-good chemicals that then bolster you to do the next thing. That then will again be successful, bolster you to do the next thing. And now, simply by removing additional things from your to-do list, you have created a ladder of progress, whereas keeping too many things on your to-do list keeps you yo-yoing between feeling like a loser and feeling successful, so you never have time to grow the ladder. You're just constantly vacillating between, because every success you have, you pull down with your cortisol, okay? So you're playing this game with yourself that you don't even know you're playing. It looks like I'm milking cows, the action that I was doing here. I've never milked a cow, but I assume that's what it looks like. So you'll do this once a week where you will prioritize based off of your goals. Only then can you be sure that the things that you're doing each week are specifically chosen to grow your business, to create progress and momentum, and not simply to cross things off of a list. Otherwise, all you're doing is a lot of stuff. That's it. You're just doing a lot of stuff. And that's why you feel bad when you go to bed at night. So here's how you can do this. I just gave you a whole lot of information. You're going to want to listen to this again. What I would recommend is after listening to this, head over to hustleproofyourlife.com, put in your email address, and you'll download my free tool for exactly how to set these lists up. It's basically what we just talked about today, but it's just in a little bit more detail, and it gives you some guidelines. After you've downloaded the freebie, you'll actually also have the ability to purchase a video guided training, which is 4 videos where I guide you through this step by step. And I will tell you, it is freaking mind blowing. You'll get it at a huge discount. I recommend that you take it because it's something that you're going to want anyway. And eventually you're going to want to buy it. So better buy it now for 27 than buy it later for 50, right? So it'll work better for that. These 2 things on their own, if you start working on your to-do list, like right now, approaching it from this new way, using the mantra, slowing down and really being intentional about what you do, you will find that the first 2 weeks are hard. They always are. But after the first 2 weeks of doing this, you will see an enormous difference in how you feel, in the number of things that you're getting done, how much money you're making, how much notice you're getting from people around you. You will find that you're more confident, you're more excited about your business, and that you have more time to do the things that you want to do that have nothing to do with your business, like hanging out with your dog or cuddling with the kids or doing a puzzle, whatever it is. You'll find that you suddenly have more free time to do other things. And I want to encourage you to take advantage of that time and do things for yourself, because that only serves to contribute to the ladder of success that we're talking about. The hardest part about starting this podcast was the understanding that most of the things that I talk about are going to challenge the things that we believed in for years about ourselves, about business, about getting things done, about success, about value, about worth. Like, this was a really scary podcast to start because the whole premise of it is saying that the things that we learned, we need to revisit. They're not working for us anymore. And the last couple of podcasts specifically have been about letting go of these ideas that, I will be very honest, I didn't realize I held to be as true as the sun rises in the morning and the sky is blue, and you use a to-do list just like this to be successful, and you need a lot of followers to make money, and then the tide rises. All of these things are immutable. These are like facts of nature. This is just how it is. I didn't know how deeply I was holding on to these ideas as if they were true, so that I would never challenge them. And so I always looked for solutions in other places. But yet I kept finding myself back in the same place over and over again. It was like Groundhog Day. I simply was not getting away from that feeling that what I was doing was not enough, or that there was never enough money, or that I wasn't going to be. There was just always that feeling that I needed to do more. And no matter how many things I tried, I still had that feeling, which made me realize that maybe I was approaching it the wrong way. And when I started to challenge these ideas that I held to be so true, like dinosaurs being reptiles, and I challenged that, suddenly my entire life started to change. And this was about 3 years ago. All of you who have been with me since then have seen my life change since I started to do these things. And those of you who have applied this already, oh my God, some of my clients come to me afterwards and they're like, I actually had one client say that she felt bad because she felt like she wasn't working enough. And I asked her, I said, well, are you making enough money? And she goes, oh yeah, I'm making more money than I was making before. I was like, well, then what do you care if you're not working as much? She goes, oh yeah, I guess it doesn't. She's like, I just feel like I should be. And I was like, that is programming. That's what you want to work on. You don't want to replace work with more work. Now, if you're making more money than you were making before doing less, then find a hobby, right? Find something else that you love doing. If you're happy where you're at in your business in every way, then nothing ever needs to change. It's fine, right? But when there's dissatisfaction, you also may be drawn to making big sweeping changes, like buying another class or course from somebody, or paying more money to hire another coach, or revamping your website, or doing Facebook ads, or a whole lot of other things that may or may not be important, but there's no way to know for sure as long as you're barreling through your to-do list at full speed. The best piece of advice I can give you before heading out today is to slow down. You are enough exactly as you are, and what you're doing is also enough. Stay in the moment. Stay in the moment for everything that you do, and I promise you that you will start to see a difference in your business and your life almost immediately. My goal is to help women enjoy the experience of running a business on a day-to-day basis without overwhelm and fear. And you can help me by leaving a review for this podcast on whatever app it is that you're listening to it on, and sharing it with your friends. Send it out to the one person you know who is constantly feeling overwhelmed, and I promise you they will thank you. And I really would love to know, once you start to implement these to-do lists and you start seeing that momentum I was talking about, send me a message because I want to hear all about your successes, or post it here. Wherever you tell me, it's fine. I want to hear about all of your successes. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Stop Shitting All Over Yourself. I am Vanessa Konecki, your host, and I will see you next week right here, same bad time, same bad channel, for Stop Shitting All Over Yourself. And if you'd like to join us live, you can visit us at manessa.com Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Take care. Alrighty, okay. No, it's not a new video training, dude. It's the Hustle Proof Your Life video training. Okay. All right. It's an overshocked. Hey, Ashley. Hello, everybody. Okay. So, all right. So what have we got here? So it's an overshock to your nervous system. Oh my God. It so is. Ashley says that her biggest problem is structure. That is a problem for a lot of people, is structure, especially if like you're someone like me who didn't like structure before. So if you're somebody who struggles with structure, what I would recommend is start with one thing, right? So the way that I started is, okay, breakfast. Every day for breakfast, I'm going to have X. Okay, so I've just been having the same thing for breakfast every day for 6 months. Okay, so that's how I started it, by getting like breakfast. What after breakfast? Okay, I'm going to meditate after breakfast. So after I got breakfast in, I got my meditation in a little bit, right? So I built my structure slowly. So let me tell you where I'm at right now in my morning. So my morning structure that I put together is get up, make breakfast, bacon, eggs, and I have these sesame crackers that I have, like, because I have no gluten in the mornings. Apple juice, which I didn't have today, which was awful. Oh my God, I'm so cranky about that. Because I don't like my routine being messed up. And then after that, it's shower, bathroom shower, meditate. Oh, actually, you know what? The dogs are the first thing. I take the dogs out the first thing, they poop, then I do that. Okay, so now I have those things built in place, then I meditate, then I sit down at 9 o'clock to like look at what the work I have to do for the day. So that's my morning ritual. I want to start it at 5. Oh, I read my card and do my blood pressure right after my meditation. Take my medicine right after my breakfast. This is all ritualized. I do it every single day, every single day. The thing that's missing is I want to be up at 5:30 in the morning, and I haven't yet managed to get there. Okay, some days I get up at 5:30, some days I don't. If I get up at 5:30, then I'm able to add the gym in the morning as well. So that's the next level that we're doing to get that structure in. But it started with just doing one thing. So Ashley, I don't recommend saying, this is the structure that I want for my day, and this is what I'm going to do starting tomorrow. That is going to, like you said, overshock your system. You'll do it for 2 weeks. You'll be exhausted. It'll be very painful. It's going to be a really unpleasant experience. I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. I recommend instead pick one thing that you want to make your anchor. That's going to be just the first thing that you start with, whatever it is. For me, I did breakfast because I wanted it to be first thing in the morning just to make my life easier. Other things are clock out at a certain time, or like in the evening, hang out with Alex. Whatever these things are that you put into place, just put them into place one at a time, one at a time. And as you go, you'll be able to make micro adjustments. Because if you try to make your whole schedule in one day, you don't actually know what you really like or don't like. You just know what you want to do, but you have no idea how it's going to impact your body, especially if you have chronic illness. So if you go slowly, then you're able to adapt and pivot as you need, and you get to slide gently into your future great self without any shock to your system. So it took me 6 months to get me where I'm at right now, just in terms of my morning breakfast and blah, blah, blah. I feel great. This is amazing. But it's still not done. There's still more to do. But I don't know what I want to do if I'm not dancing the dance, right? Because here's the thing about going with the flow. You've got to be going slow enough to know what the flow is, right? Nobody wants to, if I say go with the flow, in your mind, you're imagining yourself going down a lazy river slowly, right? You're not imagining yourself laying in a floaty in a raging torrential river going down to a waterfall, right? You're imagining slowly, right? So in practice, why are we approaching changing our schedule like a huge waterfall in a gigantic, terrifying boat, river, right? Do for yourself what you imagine. You imagine yourself floating on this Caribbean lagoon, clear waters, blue skies, just relaxing. You can give that to yourself just by slowing down. That's it. That's your gift to you, right? Okay. Alrighty. So now I need to see how to write off therapy as a business deduction. Dude, when you figure that out, let me know, because I want to write that off as a business deduction. Oh my God. You know what's weird is that all of the comments got completely rearranged, like totally rearranged. Okay, so I love that you said this, right? Because you've got your biggest challenge is structure. You're way too flowy, but I want to ask you, how quickly are you rushing through your life, right? And I know you're rushing through your life quickly, and here's how I know that. because it took you 2 days between the time you said you wanted to start a podcast to go do the thing. Run right through. Not saying that that's wrong, but that is a good indication that you're rushing forward like the torrential river and not going with any flow. You're actually getting hit against rocks and whatnot, right? Now, that may not always be the case, because sometimes you got to be rushing. These last 4 months, I had to rush. Otherwise, how would I do my house, right? Like, I didn't have a choice. I had to rush. Now that I'm done rushing, I'm back. I went right back into the thing, right? So you've got to ask yourself, how much is this rushing working for me? And then just figure out for yourself what pace you want to do, when you want to be fast, when you want to be slow. Because this is not about judgment. This is really important. I'm not judging. Anyone could go as fast or slow as they want. We're all different people. But what I want you to know and be able to recognize is the signs that you might not be doing what you really want to be doing. You might just be doing stuff that it's been what you've been doing all along, so you're stuck in the momentum. So if you slow down, you can actually thoughtfully then decide, oh, would I have made this choice anyway if I had slowed down and given myself time to think about it? Or did I just make it because I wanted to make the choice now? I'll be honest, I found 50-50. Sometimes I would have made the same choice and other times I wouldn't have. So it's worth it enough to sort of do the experiment. All right. After all those years working in restaurants, the very nature of environment is the person who gets the most done wins. You know what, Dawn? I'm glad you said that, because that's actually one of the things that made me realize this. Coming from academia, coming from corporate, like, it's the same thing. You just cross off the list, the more things you get done, and it gets programmed into you. I think the thing we need to all remember now is we're not there anymore. You're not in the restaurants anymore. I'm not in corporate America anymore. We're not in those places. So though those tools helped us enormously when we were in those circumstances, they don't help us now. And it's actually no different from a PTSD, actually, to be perfectly honest, right? Because like a lot of the symptoms of my PTSD and the issues that I have because of my trauma in Pakistan, those things created a lot of behavior patterns that were extremely damaging to me once I left Pakistan and came here. Because America is not Pakistan. Not the same things, not the same problems, not the same issues, not the same anything, right? So I come here and I've got those same tools and I'm using them. I'm behaving as if I feel like I'm going to get shot anytime I turn around, but like there's nobody there trying to shoot me. Those don't serve me anymore. Okay, that's really important to remember, is what is serving you now and what isn't serving you. And it's really good to know where it came from, because if you ever find yourself in that position again in the future, you already have that tool, right? So let's say you're like, oh, I'm going to go work in a restaurant for, a month, right? You can just whip out that tool and be like, all right, now I'm going on the mode of go, 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 because that's where I'm at. This is what I'm going to do in this environment, right? It doesn't have to be the same for everywhere. You just have a tool in your toolkit and you can just pull out whatever tool you want. That, my friends, is called having a massive skill set. Just FYI. Huge skill set. You guys, skill sets, big, okay? Okay, alrighty. Oh, I'm so sorry you missed the show, dude. I'm so sorry that you missed the show. Don't worry, it's recorded. Okay, oh my God, my butt hurts. All right, so here's what I would love for you to take away from today. This is the most important thing. Forget about everything else, right? The most important thing I want you to take away from today, for everyone who's on here, is, and I want you to say this out loud, okay? Like, sit down, give yourself a few deep breaths. And I want you to really hear these words I'm saying to you. You are enough. And whatever you do each day is enough. Your value is not determined by how many things you can cross off a list. You have value simply because you exist. You have value just because of who you are, because you're here on this planet, and you have a wonderful gift. You're not going to run out of time. You'll be able to do all of these things. But in order to do them, you have to trust in yourself that it's going to happen, because it will happen. A lot of the issues that we have in our lives come from the fact that we're afraid that it won't happen for us. And we feel like we have to rush just to make sure that we can catch it before it doesn't happen. It's a really weird psychological experience. I share these visualizations with you in hopes that they'll help you to sort of see the way that you're approaching your business in a different way. Because I often felt like I was going to run out of time to be successful. And I don't know, that doesn't even translate well into English, right? Where you say, I was worried I was going to run out of time to be successful. And then I was worried that I would run out of time to have an impact. And then I realized that I have as much time as I need, and so do you. But the most important thing is that you checking something off a list doesn't make you better or worse. It doesn't make you a more valuable human being. It doesn't make your business more likely to succeed. It doesn't make it likely that you're going to make more money. It just means you crossed something off a list. That's it. Congratulations. It gave you a dopamine hit. That's all it is. You in here, this person that has brought with you your years of experience, your years of success, your years of trials and tribulations and failures and happiness and everything that you've done. That magic that exists in there, that is why you're going to be successful. But too many of us think it's based off of what we do, and so we try to chase the to-do list, hoping that it will compensate for all the failures that we think we have in here, okay? I want to encourage you to look in here and have faith in yourself, have belief in your ability to succeed, and you won't feel such an overwhelming need to cross off your to-do list because you will be validating yourself from the inside out. I found meditation to be very, very helpful. I use the Headspace app. That will help enormously, but I really wanted you to take that away because I think that's something that's been really profoundly impacting me the last couple of days, is the understanding that there are so many of us who simply cross things off the list so that we don't feel like we are worthless. And that's something that I would really like to help move away from, okay? Alrighty. Margie says she loves that you are enough. You are. You are. And because you don't cross those things off the list doesn't mean you're a failure. Absolutely not. It doesn't mean all it means, thank you for saying that because I did not get that in there. It does not mean that you're a failure. All it means is that you didn't cross something off a list. That's it. So that's all. And that doesn't really mean anything except, oh, look, it's a list. It's not there. Okay. Then you do it tomorrow, right? But you're kind. You're good. You're experienced. You're brilliant. You have a gift. You have an idea. You have a vision. You have grit. My God, you have so many things. What the hell do you need with a list, right? The list is just a tool that's helping you, okay? So that's what I want to leave you with. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today because it had a huge, huge impact on me personally in terms of how it changed the way that I approach my business and how I feel about my business. Feel free to message me if you have any questions about Headspace, if you have any questions about therapy. I am happy to talk to you on a one-on-one basis on that because I know that not everybody wants to talk about those things in public, especially if you're just starting out. I am a very open book. Feel free to reach out to me for anything, and I will help guide you to whoever or wherever it is that you need to go. It's not really just about you coming to me. It's about me helping you figure out where you need to go, right? So I'm an open book. Feel free. Contact me anytime. Guys, have a wonderful, I'm so glad you like my view. Isn't it awesome? It's so fun. I'm hoping it's going to get more scroll stops. All right. Bye, guys. Have a great day. Okay, how do I press stop? Oh, there it is.